Hello, my name is John Barley from Rite New Zealand Limited. This is our fourth episode on the subject of are we on the right track? We look at the issues facing businesses today in this troubled times, in these difficult moments of our economy since the virus has had its impact on the way we live, etc. But we often ask, are we actually on the right track? We look for guidance to make certain that we can optimize the opportunities that we have so we don't make mistakes. It is for this reason that we are interviewing Mr. Brian Fielkow from Houston, Texas. I've known Brian now for 6 years. He owned a company called JET CO Deliveries Limited in the city of Houston, supplying the transport services and logistics to the oil industry in Texas. He's since sold his business to a company called JET in Montreal, Canada, but he still retains a corporate executive position within JET and also within JET CO Deliveries Limited. We're going to go with Brian on a journey of how he actually transformed JET CO Deliveries when he purchased it in 2007, 2008, how he actually overcame the issues and challenges of the GFC, and how he grew his business, not based on cutting costs, but on the strangest of subjects being safety in leadership. Safety to Brian is a primary value of a business. It's not a priority, it's a value, and it needs to be supported by the culture. Brian came from the legal profession when he first started his working career, and now he is making dramatic changes in the way we need to look at business, but also how we need to look at the people that work within our business and how are we able to optimize the value of those people in our business for the business and its growth. So I ask you to come with me as we explore what Brian has actually done in his business and in his own professional career. So stay with us for the next few minutes, and I trust you enjoy the journey. We'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye. Brian, how are you?
John, I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good. Brian, it's been a long time since we last spoke. Can you just, for the audience, describe what your business is all about and what your role is within that business?
Sure. Well, John, I'll kind of come at you with two businesses. I've been in the logistics business for a long time now. Company is JET CO Delivery, based in Houston, Texas. And we actually sold the company a year ago to the GTI group based in Montreal. So I'm GTI's executive vice president. I'm also chief executive officer for JET CO Delivery. So running a cross-border asset-based trucking company and freight brokerage company. And then also kind of, as you know, because we work together, I still write and speak and get involved in consulting on the topics of company culture and safety culture. So I stay busy.
Good. And Brian, your background, you were a lawyer in America, and you also went through waste management, and you also owned another company prior to JET CO. What was the catalyst? What was that trigger figure that made you suddenly realize it was leadership in safety that made the difference for the success of a business?
Yeah, I think I think it was an evolution. I mean, I've always been interested in leadership. And for some reason, safety seemed to be kind of this magical, you know, kind of not well understood concept to me. I early on in my career, I thought it was rules, regulations, handbooks, policies. It's really not. I mean, your ability to lead people safely is just a subset of your ability to lead people. I mean, can you imagine a company with a bad safety culture that's well run? And similarly, can you imagine a company where safety is just a non-negotiable core value, but the company is poorly run, there's no leadership? So I've basically been able over the years to refine and develop my ability to lead an organization and lead people safely at the same time, because I've learned that anyone really, if I can do it, anybody can do it in terms of leading people safely. You don't need a technical skill. You need the passion and the focus. You need to have your values straight so that nothing, including productivity and production pressure, will interfere with safety. And besides the fact that it's the right thing to do for your employees and for the public, it's the lowest cost, highest value investment you can make. If you think safety is expensive, consider the opposite. On top of that, if you don't run a safe organization, you have no way of attracting the best customers. The best customers no longer want to work, no longer will work with rogue operators.
All I can say is, wow, Brian, there's an awful lot of nuggets even in that statement. And I think the thing that really pours out of it is this challenge of understanding the necessity of values. Where do values come from in your mind?
Well, you know, they need to come from the company's leadership, but it's not like, you know, you're on top of the mountain giving, you know, the commandments to the team. I don't look at it that way. I think that what you have to do is distinguish between values and priorities. Values are the glue that binds the company together. And priorities, on the other hand, shift by the day. So I can come in today with a list of things to do, and you know, the wind blows, I get a phone call, I've got a customer problem. My priorities shifted. Priorities can shift, they should shift. It's part of the joy of being in business. Values are immutable. So, you know, we see these signs up that say safety is our priority. John, tear the damn sign down. Safety is not a priority. Safety is a core value. So values don't change, priorities do. So you have to lead from a set of values, and people will follow your lead. And quite frankly, for those that don't share the same set of values, they don't belong in the company. You coach, you train, you bring people along, but at some point, you know, if integrity is a value, and hopefully it is for most companies, and you have a team member that doesn't want to play by that and doesn't want to practice integrity, why are they working for you? But the worst thing possible is to preach and not practice. So, you know, if I'm saying respect is a value, that I'm treating all my people like garbage, I've lost all my credibility. So as a leader, I've got to define the values, infiltrate them, and then live them and model them. If I don't do any of those, it's almost not worth trying, because you're going to lose all your credibility, and you're going to look appropriately so disingenuous.
Once again, there's an awful lot of information. So
we're doing this kind of concentrated, kind of getting a lot out in a little time.
Well, yeah. It's so culture. How important is culture in regards to defining the values within a business and setting it aside from this other topic of priorities?
Well, your culture is your everything. It's who you are. And people tend to, you know, really confuse and complicate the concept of culture. I mean, there's a lot of people that like to make a make a meal out of a snack. Culture, if you have a healthy culture, it's nothing more than the convergence of the right people and the right process working in harmony. Culture is the right people, the right process. You're not going to have a culture with one or the other. It's both. And it's what makes you different. I mean, the odds are, you and I are talking in our respective businesses, and the people that you're going to share this podcast with, we're all in the same boat. Our clients can get our product or service from somewhere else, and they might be able to get it somewhere else cheaper. I mean, who wants to be the cheapest on the block? Not me. So your culture is the ultimate differentiator. If you live and breathe a culture, if you've got a well-defined culture, it's what sets you apart. And, I ask people, are you the lowest price competitor? And they'll say no. And I'll say, well, why would I buy from you? Because of how we do things, because of our service, because of how we treat our customers, etc. All they're saying is it's our culture. It's our culture is what makes us different. So it's a strategic decision. It's got bottom line implications. People tend to start thinking it's kind of campfire stuff, cultures, feel good, fuzzy stuff. Well, there is a feel good component to it, honestly. But as business people, we got to look at the return on our effort. And again, like a safety culture, a general company culture is the lowest cost, highest return investment you can make. It's what decommoditizes you. It's what sets you apart from the pack.
Okay, here's a question for you. When I talk to other business owners about the measurement of culture and having that bottom line beneficial result, the question that I come back with is, how do we measure that? Because that's not something that is normally measured within business.
Well, there's a couple ways I would answer it. There are really good companies out there that will do employee surveys. They're all geared around culture. So yeah, you can measure that, and you can measure, with pulse surveys, you can measure whether you're making progress or not, and you should. But let's say you don't want to. Your general metrics are more important. In other words, if you're building a healthy culture, okay, you're going to see it in your financial statements. You're going to see it in your insurance losses, and you're going to see it in unwanted employee turnover. I mean, I like the surveys. I like the culture surveys, and I've used them successfully. If you had to take something away from me, take that away and give me my basic metrics, whatever my KPIs are to measure my business. A healthy, engaged culture will ultimately show up. It's not going to show up in one quarter. You got to be patient. You got to work at it. But that's where it really is if you're outperforming the benchmark, if you're better today than you were yesterday, that's where you see it, I think, in your core metrics.
Is it a practice or is it a discipline, Brian?
It's both. I mean, it's more of a discipline, I think. In other words, look, we've all got bad days. We all have bad days. We all say things we regret. I've had some choice words in the past, and so you've got to hold yourself accountable. You've got to be disciplined. It's a practice, but because we're always, the word practice implies we never get it right. We're always learning, and that's true. But I don't want to make it sound like you need a special degree or a special background. I mean, some of my competitors who I've watched, who I really respect, are guys that came up, like in trucking, they had a couple trucks and a couple more trucks and a couple more trucks. So they learned how to treat people the right way from building their own business small. So it is a practice, but it's not like I have to have a degree or special training, because it's all how you treat people. It's all how you show up. It's all how you act and how you communicate.
I think we're talking about a conflict between hard data and soft data. And where you're going to, or the journey you've been on for JET CO and all your people, you've got this magical mix of hard data and soft data together, and you found the perfect balance.
Yeah.
How have you seen that reflected in the success of your business?
Well, number one, you've got to surround yourself with people that complement your skills and are stronger than you in certain areas. So your hard data, soft data conversation, I mean, I tend to function a little bit more intuitively. I'm good with words. I can get my way through financial statements just fine, but not the way that other people can. So our company's president has a financial background. He's a hard data guy. He's a metric guy. And so we joke a lot that, you know, he takes the Excel spreadsheet, I take the Word document, we meet in the middle. And so you need to succeed in business, I think you need to be good at hard data and soft data. But, you know where your strength is. I think we always worry about, well, here's what I'm weak at. So how do I fix my weaknesses? And that's just wrong. I mean, yeah, we want to grow, but I'd rather build my strengths, play to my strengths, and surround myself with people who are stronger than me in the areas where I know I'm not good. I'm not going to be a CPA, period. And God help anybody that had me do that. So I think it's a matter of, you got to do this with hard data and soft data. But that said, we're in such a data-driven world right now. You've got to rely on your intuition a little bit. Trust your instincts.
Ryan, you've got created a very successful business in the transport industry, which is, here in New Zealand, it's a hard industry with hard men. And your character is not of the norm within that industry, and yet you've been able to bring your empathy, your gentleness into a hard industry, and made it a success and grown your business. How long did it actually take you to recognize that the skills that you have actually are making a difference to JET CO Deliveries?
Well, so I bought JET CO in 2006 and sold it in 2019, but I'm still running it. I'm still very involved with it. You know, for the first couple of years I got into the business, I certainly didn't have a lot of self-confidence. You know, you're kind of new, kind of a rookie, but all of a sudden, you know, you realize that your playbook works. You know, one of the people that was there at the time of the acquisition, and she's still there, said, "Man, when you bought this place, I thought they were gonna, kind of eat you up and spit you out." And like, no, I mean, because I like to lead with empathy. I like to lead people the right way. But in any business, look, it's business, and if you've got to make a tough decision, you know, you got to make a tough decision. You know, surgeons get paid to cut people to make people better. So yeah. It really, over the years, you know, you just learn how to, and I knew that before I even bought the company, and so it didn't really bother me to have to make those hard decisions. But I prefer not to. I prefer to appeal to people's best instincts. But if it doesn't work, I know what to do, and you know, I can play hardball with the best of them if I have to.
Waste management. What did waste management teach you in regards to playing hardball?
Well, a lot. I mean, look, so went from practicing law to working in a privately held recycling company. They were crazy enough to offer me the job as their chief operating officer when I was 31, just having practiced law. And I was like, oh, I'm taking that. We built that company, sold it to Waste Management. I was only at Waste for a couple of years, and then I decided I wanted to go buy my own company. But while I was at Waste, first of all, I got there about 2 years after a new CEO came in, and he had inherited a financial mess. He was hired to turn the company around, and he did. Waste Management's a great organization. Couple things I learned. First of all, world-class safety. They went from worst to first in safety. And my mentor, this guy named Jim Schultz, we co-wrote our book together, Leading People Safely. And so I learned a lot about, kind of like Jim and I would joke about, a bonfire with the handbooks, right? That it's about how you treat people. I learned about internal branding, having kind of a safety brand. I also learned that like when I saw our CEO turn around, turn the company around, he led from a position of value. He led the company through crisis. And quite frankly, there was a lot of people who rebelled. You know what? They're gone. He got rid of them fast because nobody's going to win everybody. And the faster you can get rid of the people who are actively working against you, the faster you can get rid of the people whose mindset is, we've always done it this way, the faster you can affect corporate and or safety change.
Wow.
So I watching that company transition, watching the quality of leadership, and the true passion that people had for doing their jobs, but doing it safely. It's a great organization.
Okay. So I've written down some notes here, and whilst you've been talking, and you mentioned a point of difference for a business. You mentioned the necessity to have values as the bottom line foundation of a business. And you also mentioned that culture also enhances that point of difference, but it comes from fundamentally the values of the business. You also said that if you have a sign on the wall saying safety is our priority, rip it down, because priorities change during the day, but your values do not. They are set in concrete. That's your foundation to stand from. This challenge of having differences or having your business seen as different and special to the market that you're trying to attract is such a vital ingredient. So would it be right in saying that in actual fact it's your values, although they're set in concrete, that's your golden egg?
It is,
and
because
you can put everything else around it.
Yeah, nobody can take those away from you. Absolutely. But your values need to be, it's not enough for the leader to talk about them or even to model his or her behavior around them, but it has to be employee owned. So you've got to get people on board who share those values. I've got a lot of team members who came from hellacious companies, right? And so if you've been in some hellhole and work there, you really appreciate it. We've had plenty of people that they kind of start to take it for granted, and they think the grass is greener somewhere else. So go try it out. And a lot of them want to come back at one point or the other. They may not knock on the door, but you get a whisper at midnight, hey, do you still want so-and-so back? And once in a while I'll say yes, depending on the circumstances. Usually the answer is no. We're proud of what we do, and we want people who are lined up with that.
I think, isn't the word loyalty?
Loyalty to the values. I gotta be careful, not loyalty to me, because it's I don't think it's necessarily about the leader. I've got to build a company that would last way beyond me. That's my goal. That's always been my goal, is to build a professional company. So I want people who are loyal to the organization, people who support our values, who hold each other to a higher standard than our competition. And they like an environment of continuous improvement. We don't want people where we've always done it this way, kind of a complacent attitude. There's just no upside to that. So I know what a good keeper looks like. And the other thing I find is that our best employees are attracted by existing employees because they know who's going to fit and they know who's not going to fit, and they want to recommend good people. So our best team members absolutely come from referrals.
So there's a question in here which I'm just trying to come to terms with. If you were to create an immune system within your business, what would be the components of that immune system? And just for the purpose of informing the listeners, when I talk about having an immune system, I'm looking at and referring to a human cell as an analogy. A human cell has different components within it, and because of the well-being of the cell and its health, it is actually able to create its own antibodies to fight off those threats from outside the cell, but also those issues that are within the cell. What would you say would be your primary building blocks if you wanted to create an immune system within your business? And I think you already have an immune system, and it works so perfectly well because you've got the overall total well-being of the business, and it's growing and it's successful. So what would you say were your immunity building blocks?
Well, first of all, you got to guard the gates. So when we're bringing in potential new hires, we've got culturally aligned people to do the interviews. So it's not, hiring is not just the function of one person or an HR department. We want several people to put their eyes on the new candidate to be sure that they fit. So a lot of times we'll have people who come through our doors. They're technically good. Technically they can do the job, but our team of frontline employees that interviewed that person will say, no, they're just not, they don't have it. Fine. I mean, they know better than I do. They know better than I do 10 times out of 10. And then once you've got somebody hired, just remember this, John, in a healthy culture, peers will organically weed out toxic behavior. So in other words, we've had plenty of situations where the team has fired the employee. All I had to do, or all one of my managers had to do, was get it done, So they will weed out people, because when you've got people that protect the cell, to use your term, when you've got people that are protecting the cell because they're proud of it, they don't want any people in there that could threaten the health of the cell. So I've seen this on many, many occasions where the team has identified bad behavior faster than I have. And so certainly we don't just fire, we coach, we try, we bring people along, we give people the benefit of the doubt, we treat them the way I want you to treat me, I would treat you. But at some point you say, no mas, no more, it doesn't work. And it's a success, not a failure, when the team is able to vote somebody off the island.
Fascinating. When I was in America attending your seminar, I had the fortune to be able to talk to some of your people. And Brian, you didn't select those people, but I had the freedom to go and talk to anybody I wanted. And for the audience, I spoke to, I suppose, 5, 6 people, and they were primarily your frontline people. They were your truckies. Mm-hmm. And I asked them, what is it that keeps you with JET CO Deliveries? Is it money? And they said, no. I said, well, where does money fit in? in a scale of 1 to 10. And they said, well, coming back to your first question, John, we don't want to leave JET CO because primarily Brian and the business cares. I said, cool. So where does money come in? They said about number 5 or 6 in the scale of priorities to them. And so you've created a business which has got awesome people in it, and you've created a sense of loyalty within your cell, which actually enhances the overall well-being of the business. So if somebody such as myself comes in and asks questions, the story is the same and is very, very solid. So would that actually be a necessary component of having a safety culture within a business?
Well, sure. I mean, first of all, when it comes to money, I mean, I'll be real clear. You know, money is critically important, but I have the philosophy that if I underpaid, I wouldn't be able to hire anybody. If I overpaid too much, I'd be out of business. There's a market, and I like to pay toward the top of the market, but there's still a market that you've got to pay within. So I'm making the assumption that, you know, the guy across the street and I, if we're doing apples to apples work, exact same kind of work and competing with each other, I'm going to pay within a range. I may be a little bit higher, maybe they're a little bit higher, but that's not what makes people move. I mean, as long as they're being paid fairly. So fair pay is the ticket to begin the conversation. If you don't have fair pay, forget about the culture, forget about everything else. But once you have fair pay established, then it's all about how you treat people. And just like, you know, we create an experience for our customers. I want my customers to experience something different from my competition. Well, it starts with my employees. If I treat my employees right, they'll treat the customers right. It doesn't work in any other order. If you take care of your customers, I mean, if you take care of your employees, they take care of the customers. If you trample on your employees, they'll punch in, they'll punch out, and they'll do what they need to. But there's not going to be that passion there. So, but again, you've got to take care of your team so they can take care of the customers. And it fits perfectly with safety because, again, when people know they're cared for and they know safety is important, they'll modify their behavior accordingly. And that's what we do is you know, I keep saying, you know, our second mission, our second responsibility is to deliver cargo. Our first responsibility is to protect each other and protect the public.
So safety comes from your values. Safety is your primary point of difference. But because of that, safety is also permitting you to add value to your customers, giving them that experience, but it's also increasing your margin. You're actually building your margin.
Oh, sure.
From within.
Sure. I mean, first of all, a lot of customers, sophisticated ones, will cut people out if they're unsafe. So now you're competing with a smaller group of people, but now your insurance cost is lower. So if my insurance cost is, you know, X% lower, I've got a competitive advantage or a profit opportunity over, you know, brand X. Sure. Yeah. I mean, look, safety is the right thing to do first and foremost, but there's a hardcore business proposition also. And I think if people, you know, people that think safety is expensive, well, first of all, I would say consider the cost of accidents. If you think safety is expensive, the cost of being unsafe is a lot more. But on top of that, I really believe, John, that it gives you a competitive advantage. In my mind, safety is the hallmark of an operationally excellent company. You can't tell me that you're operationally excellent. You know, if you're running people over and people are losing legs in your equipment, I don't buy it. You're not operationally excellent. Safety is the hallmark of operational excellence. Safety and operations go hand in hand. They're not like these separate, distinct disciplines. So I get real annoyed with people who, you know, want to say, well, you know, you want to be safe or productive? What do you want? Well, I want both. I've got to be productive and safe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And what's your most favorite book, Brian?
I'm probably a fan of Pat Lencioni, and he has a book called The Advantage, which I love. He's written a whole bunch of books, and The Advantage is kind of his greatest hits book. So for somebody like me that likes to read fast, The Advantage. Another book, I don't care if you ever open the cover, but put it on your desk. It's called Employees First, Customers Second. That keeps you prioritized, that take care of your people, they'll take care of your customers. And the third that I love is called The Checklist Manifesto. And it's just a book about, you know, one doctor's experience with eliminating errors and failures in the operating room with simple checklists. I don't believe in big handbooks. I don't believe in you know, death by policy. I think that in a safe culture, you can do it with simple processes and checklists. And that book is great too. So those are three of my favorites. But if we're talking about company culture, it's probably The Advantage by Lencioni.
Yeah. And who do you look up to as being a person to follow who inspires you?
Well, you know, I mean, personally, obviously, my parents would be high on that list. They'd be very high on that list. They were in business, and so I learned a lot about how to treat people, treat our employees, through just growing up and watching how they treated people that worked in their respective retail operations. So that's probably where I get a lot of this. And you know, other than that, in the business and political world, you know, I've got people I look up to, and then others maybe not so much.
I wonder who that would be. So that's really cool. And Brian, have you got any other added nuggets of gold that you would want to add for New Zealand business owners who are struggling to come to terms with saying, okay, how much is this going to cost? Because I'm not going to see any return on my investment in regards to immediate turnover, because many businesses, because of this virus, are shutting down. They're going through hard times, and they're having to work with their people, and some people have been made redundant. Businesses are shutting down everywhere through fear. What are your golden nuggets to those business people that are really quite lost?
Yeah, and that's no different than what we're experiencing here right now with COVID. I mean, it's the economy is really pulled back, and I think most every business is struggling and suffering. And I would just say, from my experience, because being in Houston, you know, we live in Hurricane Central.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happened, but you know, Houston's just a great place, but man, hurricane season can be a little edgy. I've found that through times of crisis, that's when you define your character as a leader. And so I know that most recently through Hurricane Harvey, we built brand new bonds with our people, because it's easy to kind of talk about this stuff in good times, right? But in normal time, in bad times, in times of crisis, that's when you see how people lead. Now, I'm not comparing COVID to Harvey, because hurricanes come, they go, and you rebuild. This thing could be the bad house guest that doesn't want to leave. So it could be a long run for all of us, and it's still where I think you define your leadership. You know, we have a lot of people that are managing with opinion. I think you need to stay fact-based. Right now, we're struggling. A lot of states are struggling with how to reopen. You know, most states have now reopened, but how? And I think what I've learned from kind of just running a business and being around safety opportunities and safety problems for so long is I like to look at it as risk versus chance. You know, as we reopen, you've got to manage risk. You can manage risk. You can quantify it. You can manage it. But don't take any chances. You can't manage chance. Chance is going to Las Vegas. Chance is gambling. So I think what we've got to do is we have to reopen. We have to get, you know, I mean, we can't, we need to flatten the curve, and we've kind of in the process, we flattened the economy too. And so the economy's got to reopen. How it reopens, I think, is a definition of how we manage risk. Are we going to be careless and just gamble, or are we going to be thoughtful? And what I'm seeing is that the real leadership here is coming in the U.S. from state governors. It's coming from business leaders. It's coming from local, you know, mayors and county officials, and that's a good thing. You know, the decisions here appear to be in a little bit of a gray area, but there's some really good officials who are making a mark on society right now, and business leaders have the same opportunity. I'm not trying to say this isn't tough. I mean, the global economy is going to take a bit to restart, and some may not survive, and that's scary. But you got to stay focused on, you know, one foot has to be managing the crisis, getting as lean as you can. The other foot has to be in planning for a better tomorrow. But either way, when it comes to safety, I don't think safety is that expensive. I think this is a chance for you to differentiate yourself, figure out who you want to be, figure out how you reinvent and redefine yourself. But again, the idea that, well, in order to do that, I've got to spend money is just plain false.
Yeah. So what you're now referring to is this wonderful subject of pivoting to a point. So to a business owner, what questions should a business owner ask in regards to pivoting the business and pivoting their own personal direction in business?
Well, I think you have to look at your markets. I mean, if one market is dead, not going to come back, see what else you can do. What other markets can you get into? And you've got to be nimble that way. But when it comes to pivoting, I believe that if you're a business leader, it can feel pretty lonely. So you've got to put together a guiding coalition. And sometimes the guiding coalition, you know, we get outsiders, we get friends, advisors, lawyers, whatever, but who do we forget? We forget our frontline employees. Bring your frontline employees into your guiding coalition, because they may be able to point you in a direction you'll never see.
I like that term, guiding coalition. That's awesome.
It's critical.
Yeah. And that, again, comes down to your values, doesn't it? And saying you value the opinion of your people that work within the business.
Yeah, well, it'll be pretty arrogant of me to think I'm smarter than them if I'm not, you know. Maybe I can ask questions, maybe I can pull people together and communicate. But like, for example, Hurricane Harvey was devastating, right? But we had people working for us. I knew who they were, that came to Houston after Hurricane Katrina devastated New Orleans. They moved to Houston permanently. So guess who was on our planning committee? Guess who was involved the whole way through? I hadn't been through that before. but they did. And so, you know, it'd be foolish for us not to bring people in who had some background.
Yeah. And so you actually created your own disaster recovery plan and business continuity plan as well. That is just part of your business makeup.
Yeah, and we update it every couple of years. It's a plan, because you got to remember, John, that when crisis hits, and maybe it's a fire, maybe it's a storm, maybe it's some tragic accident, maybe it's a pandemic. You don't have you don't want to be able to think. You just want to go into action mode. So do your thinking now. If you don't have a business continuity plan, you don't need to have. That's not too big process, right? Just know what your topics are, have it in place. Now, we didn't have COVID-19 in our business continuity plan, so we're rapidly capturing what we've learned, and the plan will be that much better. But there's a lot of basics in the plan, right? Like we were able, because we anticipated a fire, we were able to work remotely immediately, because we knew what would happen if there's a fire. So we had all that infrastructure. We pieced together all these different parts of our plan, and it worked out fine. But now we're just getting smarter, particularly in the hygiene area, particularly, you know, in kind of health and hygiene stuff that I don't think most people at least wouldn't have thought of. I mean, the people that would have thought about doing what we're doing now in the old days, we would have called them germaphobes. Today we're calling them wise men. So we've all gotten a lot smarter.
Yeah. Brian, as usual, it's been an absolute pleasure in talking to you and having you share your wisdom and knowledge and insight into how to run a business successfully and build a business successfully, because you've got the proven track record to do that. And I hope that the people that are listening to this podcast will have taken a lot of notes and will possibly, hopefully, go through it again and re-listen to it again, because, as I said earlier, there are so many good, valuable, golden nuggets in there. And when you came out in 2015, it was like having a breath of fresh air into a rather stale business environment. And I think you and I think very much on the same lines. So maybe this podcast will create another breath of fresh air and change people's attitudes and perceptions about the direction in their life and business.
Well, I think I hope so, and I think we should make a goal of getting back out to Auckland in the next couple of years. I mean, I guess not so soon with air travel and international travel, but let's make it a goal to do this live and in person the way it should be in the next couple of years. And in the meantime, John, I appreciate your friendship and how we've stayed in touch, and look forward to doing more of this. So thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure, and I hope you and everybody watching this stays safe, and we'll all get through this.
Thank you very much. You have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks.